morning, Prof.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Now, here in California this morning, it's a bit soupy out, kind of overcast. Is this going to mess up our viewing of the lunar eclipse? Well,
the eclipse is tomorrow night, so if everybody could just get outside and blow real hard, then maybe the clouds will go away. But we do need good weather to see the eclipse. But if it's slightly cloudy, sometimes the moon plays hide and seek with the thinner clouds, and then you can still see it. If you can see the moon, you can see the eclipse tomorrow night.
All right, about what time are we going to be looking at full eclipse? Kind of, maybe just take us through a beginning to end.
Sure. What's happening here is that the full moon is going to go into the Earth's shadow. And you'll begin to see the shadow at about 5:43 in the afternoon, which is really often too light to see much. And then the total eclipse starts at about 7. When the moon is completely in the Earth's shadow, and that ends about 7:52. So you have from 7 to 8 to watch the total eclipse, and then from about 8 to 9:09 roughly, you have the partial eclipse where the shadow is slowly moving off the moon, which is sometimes the most fun. So really from 7 to 9 is a good time to be looking for it.
And this is the third time in the past year this has happened?
Not in the past year, but in the last year and a half or so, we have had an unusual number of lunar eclipses. This happens, and this often then is accompanied by a dearth of eclipses coming up, and indeed that's coming, and the next one won't be visible, the next lunar eclipse won't be visible till December 21, 2010.
Oh, okay.
So,
last week
a good year to see it.
Last week we read an article, Professor, about a galaxy that has been discovered 13 billion years old.
Yes.
Now, the significance of this?
Well, what we're trying to do in general is to see how far out we can see. How far out can we detect structures? The further things are, the dimmer they look. You know this from car headlights. When the car headlight is right on top of you, it's very bright, but if it's far away, it looks much dimmer. And we are now beginning to be able to see so far out that we're looking back in time to almost the beginnings of the universe. We think the universe started about 13.7 billion years ago, and light takes a while to get to us across the vast distances. So when we're looking at galaxies about 13 billion light years away, we're essentially looking back about as far as one can look in this universe.
Wow.
And that's an astounding idea, that we are looking now at galaxies. They don't look like modern galaxies. They look like junior versions of our own islands of stars, because we're seeing them at the beginning of time almost.
Now, we've got this satellite that we're going to have to try to take out. What is it scheduled for, Thursday?
Yeah, this is I think more in the area of military issues rather than astronomy, so it's not my expertise. But yes, it does appear that we're going to be trying to shoot down our own satellite.
And Thursday is the day.
Is that something you can capture on a telescope?
Probably not. I mean, again, it may be something that they can capture from some of their own military spy satellites, but it's not something that we astronomers are very concerned about or are going to work to capture unless there's some emergency. Then, of course, everybody will jump in.
All right, let's go back to the lunar eclipse for a moment. This, again, as you said, is tomorrow night. And normally, when you're telling us about the stars and there's going to be something that we're going to watch, you'll tell us to drive out in the middle of nowhere, get away from the city lights. This particular situation, that's not the case here, right?
No, what's wonderful about lunar eclipses is that they're terribly democratic. Everyone can see them if they can see the moon. You don't need to get away from anywhere as long as you can see the moon. And you don't need fancy instruments. I mean, if you have a pair of binoculars, you might bring them, but really all you need are your eyes. If the weather cooperates, here's the one trick for your listeners. Early in the evening, the moon is going to be low in the east. It's going to rise in the east and get higher and higher. So the idea is, if you want to see it early, you're going to be able to see the eastern horizon. And for most people, there are things in the way, a building, a tree, a chubby neighbor, something's in the way when you try to look east. And so if you want to see it early, you need to get to a hill or the top of a building or someplace where you have a pretty good view looking east toward the horizon. As it gets later, then it'll be higher in the sky and easier to see.
Professor, I wanted to ask you a question. I've noticed on the evenings where, like maybe tonight, where we have a virtually full moon, but that there is a cloud overcast, I've noticed that it looks almost like it's daytime. Is that because the clouds are used as kind of a reflector?
That's right. And in general, this has been something that's lost in our culture, but the light of the full moon is pretty strong. We're always surprised because we tend to have so many indoor lights when we go outside to see how strong the light of the full moon is. People in the old days used to read by it. It was a time when everyone went outside and felt perfectly comfortable with the light level back before electric lights. So you're right, when clouds tend to reflect the light of the moon, it spreads the light out more. But just the full moon itself is a pretty good lamp.
What'd you do on Valentine's Day?
I think that's a private issue.
All right, then.
All right, well, Professor Fraknoi, as always, we appreciate it. It is kind of a fun gift. Gather the kids. He said the best viewing is between 7 and 8. That's when you're going to see the shadow of the Earth move across the moon. We'll get the full eclipse at some point between that hour, and then after 8, it'll start to move to the other side of it.
Absolutely, and I want to just mention that one nice thing you can tell the kids is that the ancient Greeks 2,000 years ago watched eclipses like this and watched the shadow of the moon. Now, the shadow of a car looks like a car. The shadow of your little brother looks like your little brother. So the shadow of the Earth on the moon looks like the Earth. And by watching eclipse after eclipse and seeing that the shadow of the Earth was always round, they already figured out that the Earth was round long before Columbus and Magellan. And your kids can duplicate that observation. Have them watch the shape of the Earth's shadow as it falls on the moon and see if they can see the roundness of the Earth.
I don't think this question has any significance whatsoever, but, why change things now? But why or how or when did we ever have astronauts on the moon during a lunar eclipse?
I don't believe so. I don't think that happened.
I wonder what that would be like.
Well, let's spend $60 billion and find out.
I'm in. All right, thanks.
In the meanwhile, enjoy the eclipse tomorrow evening.
Thank you, Professor Fraknoi. So you can only go so far with Professor.
That's right.
Don't ask him what he did on Valentine's Day.
Bring up Valentine's. It's not going to happen.
Do that.